A 1995 study in behavioral economics asked two groups of people to make guesses. Group 1 was asked to assess whether 200,000 was high or low for a guess for the population of Chicago. Group 2 was asked to assess 5 million as either high or low. Afterwards, both groups made their own guesses. The medium guess for Group 1 was 600,000, while the medium guess for Group 2 was 5,050,000. This happened for every question they asked. Average babies born per day in the US. Group 1 assessed 100, guessed 1,000. Group 2 assessed 50,000, guessed 40,000. Simply giving someone a low or a high guess to assess before they made their own guess had a substantial effect. In the case of babies born in the US, Group 2's guess was 40 times that of Group 1. Even if the guesses were wildly inaccurate, like 100 babies born per day in a country with a population in the hundreds of millions, these numbers act as an anchor, pulling guesses towards it. The findings of this study had a profound impact on our understanding of how economics works. One of the authors for the study, psychologist Daniel Kahneman, was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2002, in part for his research into what is now known as the anchoring effect. Anchoring is a critical component of how our economy works. Combined with another concept in behavioral economics, known as information asymmetry, is a core cause for rising housing prices worldwide. To explain how, I first need to explain what information asymmetry is, and to do that, I first need to talk about lemons. And no, not those lemons, lemons as in cars. The year before Daniel Kahneman won his Nobel Prize, George Akerlof won the Nobel Prize in Economics for his 1970 paper, The Market for Lemons. Lemon is a term to describe an undesirable used car. Old, worn down, unreliable, unsafe, inefficient. In his paper, George found that there was a big problem with the used car market. The lemons were selling, but the good used cars were not. Having evaluated thousands of cars, the dealer had information on the true value of a car, while the buyer did not. Let's say our buyer walks in with a budget of $10,000 and had to choose between two cars. Car 1 is worth $15,000, and car 2 is a lemon worth $5,000. When the buyer offers to buy car 1 for $10,000, the dealer is going to say no. After all, they stand to lose $5,000 from the deal. When the buyer offers to buy the lemon for $10,000, the dealer would happily sell the lemon, making a $5,000 profit. Here's where things get interesting. Over time, the buyer realizes that their lemon isn't worth $10,000, so they tell their friends, family, people they know, and word gets around that used cars aren't a great deal. Well, due to hearing negative opinions, the next buyer who walks in wants to get a fairer deal, so they're only willing to pay $9,000 for a used car. The dealer is even more unwilling to sell the $15,000 car for $9,000, but they'll still sell the $5,000 lemon. So the lemon gets sold, the buyer is unhappy, negative opinions spread, the next person who walks in is only willing to pay $8,000, and so on. Eventually, most used cars remain unsold, only the worst cars that really shouldn't be on the road are driving off the dealership, and the good cars are left to rust. Like buying a car, the process to determine the value of a house is difficult. It's complex, and home buyers and sellers tend to have different opinions on the condition of homes, the neighborhood, design, and so on. Rather than waiting and crunching dozens of variables, home buyers, sellers, and real estate agents tend to do something much easier: make a comparison. They look at what a similar property sold for. They look for an anchor. If a house sold for $5,000, it's not a bad assumption to assume that an identical house in a similar location is worth $500,000. Well, not all comparisons are accurate. Comparisons tend to be inaccurate when information is missing or ignored, creating an information asymmetry. You see, when you're buying a house, you're actually buying two products: a consumer product and a business product. The consumer product is the house you live in, while the business product is its zoning. Most cities in the world create zones which determine what can be built there, whether it's a local grocery store, a high-rise, or just a single-family home. It's the reason why you tend not to see high-rise residential residential development or restaurants in the middle of a row of houses. That row of houses is zoned for, well, a row of houses. If you're part of a city that is seeing population growth, it's likely that your city is changing zoning to allow more people to live there. Real estate developers are willing to pay a lot of money for good zoning because there's a lot of profit to be made. You could see two identical houses, one worth $500,000, zoned for a single house, and the one next to it zoned for high density residential, sell for 10 times that. Whether you're the buyer, seller, or the agent, when everyone sees the $5 million price tag, it acts as an anchor, driving the valuation of the $500,000 house up, even though it doesn't have the same zoning. Complicating the situation further is loss aversion. We as human beings have this irrational tendency to avoid losses even if it doesn't make sense. It's like when someone goes to a casino, loses 50 bucks, then decides to keep gambling hoping to make their money back. While casino gamblers are more likely to lose more money than to make their money back, this isn't necessarily true for housing. Say you bought a house right before prices crashed. You're planning to sell your house, but if you do it now, you stand to lose a lot of money. Selling would be extremely painful. For most people, it'd be years worth of wages. Two things tend to happen then. One, homeowners just don't sell at this time. It's too painful to sell, so they hold on in case prices go back up. This results in less houses for sale. Less houses for sale means more competition, means higher prices. Two, people put their houses on the market for a higher price to avoid losses. When people do this en masse, a load of houses on the market at high prices act as anchors, driving prices upwards. Here's visually what all this put together looks like. Housing prices come in cycles. They tend to go up and down with the business cycle and the economy. Add in anchors and you slow down the cycle. Past prices act as an anchor, giving the market some inertia. Once you add in the information asymmetry, you suddenly have zoning anchoring prices upwards. Add in loss aversion and you shorten the cycle for declining prices. After hearing all this, you may think housing prices may never go down, but that's not true. Anchoring, information asymmetry, and loss aversion may have driven prices up, but prices can only go up if people can afford them. This era of high housing prices and still being able to afford them may soon be coming to an end. Most people don't buy their houses outright with cash, they get mortgages. Mortgage rates have dropped substantially in the last 20 years. At the start of the 21st century, 30-year fixed-rate mortgages in the US had around 8.2% interest. At the start of last year, that rate was historically low, at around 2.8%. Interest rates are now on the rise. At the time of this video, interest rates have nearly doubled from the historical low to 5.2%. Imagine you're in the US. It's the start of 2021 and you got a $400,000 mortgage. Your monthly mortgage payments would amount to around $1,640 for a 30-year mortgage. That's 29% of the pre-tax income of the medium household in the US. For the medium household, it's manageable. What if you were to get that mortgage now, May 2022? Your mortgage payment would now be $2,180, 39% of pre-tax income. An extra $540 a month is going to require sacrifice, like cutting vacations and eating out, but it's a manageable sacrifice. Here's where things get spicy. What if interest rates were to return to 2000 levels? The monthly mortgage payment would rise to $2,950, close to 53% of household income. I mean, it may be possible to find another $1,310 per month to pay for that mortgage, but you'd likely have to go without electricity, heating, running water, personal transportation, and convert to a 100% potato diet. At that point, why bother owning your own house when it may be better just to live in a tent? Alternatively, you could find a second job, and well, since rising interest rates affect everyone, you're not alone. The economy can't create tens of millions of extra jobs in what would likely be the span of 1 or 2 years. For the last 20 years, we've been getting bigger mortgages. At the same time, the real medium household income in the United States has risen by around 6.7%. Meanwhile, the price of a single-family house has increased by 145%. What made up the difference is low interest rates, and the day of low interest rates may soon be numbered. Here's the thing though, the likely outcome of rising rates is mortgage defaults, causing declining housing prices and falling consumer spending. Falling consumer spending would cause a recession, which means more mortgage defaults and more falling consumer spending. To combat a recession, central banks likely would drive down interest rates to encourage consumer spending, which would then start the rise of housing prices all over again, causing the economy to overheat, then requiring rising interest rates to slow and cool the economy again. Compared to a traditional economic model, which sees business cycles in the economy causing housing cycles, it's increasingly looking like the opposite is true, with the housing cycle being able to cause business cycles, and the consequences may be severe. Since housing prices follow periods of consistent growth and drastic periods of decline, so too will the economy. The 07-08 subprime mortgage crisis may not be the last recession caused by our housing market. It may be the bellwether for more frequent and painful housing-related recessions to come in the 21st century. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing or contributing to my Patreon. I'll be posting at least once a week with interesting videos on psychology and behavioral economics, so I definitely suggest subscribing if you haven't already.